Alright guys, I'm going to make a quick recap video from the Bassmaster Opens tournament back in January on Clarks Hill Lake. It was a pretty fun event. I really caught everything on 2 lures during the tournament, one of which was this Untamed Tackle football head jig, juggernaut jig from Untamed Tackle. I fished it 2 ways. I fished it with the skirt, and then I also fished it without the skirt. I had it rigged up on 2 different rods, caught fish on both of them throughout the tournament. And the only other bait I threw was a jig head minnow, fishing for spotted bass. And this is a Yum. This is actually from Yum. I think it's called the SS Jig Head minnow. I could be wrong on that. I can't remember exactly, but I'll put a link in the description to it. And that was on various different minnows. I had to downsize. I had to do all kinds of different things to try to get them to bite during the tournament. So here we are, derby time. I finally got the GoPro to turn on. I think this is my second fish. I didn't get the first fish on camera because it was only about 26 degrees at takeoff. Everything's froze up. GoPros wouldn't turn on. Boat was covered in thin layer of frost. And finally hook up with, I believe, my second keeper here. Nothing special. Little £1.25 pound, £1.75. This was on a football jig, no skirt. I was just throwing a 5-inch Cinco. And didn't really catch anything else on that. Dragging on the bottom, dragging the football jig on the bottom. So I went to throwing the minnow, and it was actually a Yum FF forward facing minnow. I get them confused. I got like 3,000 forward facing minnows jigs in my boat, so I couldn't remember the name of it there, but plinked around with this for a while, just looking for fish on my forward facing sonar. You know, I was fishing 30 to 50 foot and trying to catch spotted bass. I actually did catch a few largemouth bass out really deep, 30 plus foot, but mostly spotted bass. And I think this one here is like a 2-pound spot. I was throwing a Z2 on the smaller Z2 on my jig head for a little bit there in the morning, and I think it might have hurt me because I ended up actually getting like 3 or 4 fish in a 15-minute span just nipping at it. Like I would see them on my sonar, pitch to them, and they would just nip at it, and I had to change colors, change baits all throughout the days. I know in practice I was throwing that Z2. If you've seen a fish, like I was catching 1 out of every 3 fish I pitched to, and it definitely was not like that in the tournament. I don't know if it was fishing pressure, weather conditions, what, but they definitely changed up a little bit and made it a little tougher to get them to eat. But just a little spot there. This I actually think is this is where I switched up to that Damiki 2.75, and I got bit quite a bit on this. This ended up being a good little bait for me on day 1, and this is like a 4-pounder. I think this was like a 4.4, 4.3, something like that. But this was my 5th fish of the day, and gave me a solid limit. I think this only gave me like 10 and a half pounds. I think it gave me 10, 12, something like that. Nothing crazy, but it was definitely a good fish, and I was happy to have it.
Oh yeah. We definitely need this one. Yes, sir. Let's go, baby. That's number 5. Woo, he was barely hooked. He was freaking barely skin hooked. That's a 4-pounder. Let's go. I was throwing that Strike King. We're all tangled up, but I'll get tangled up for a 4-pounder. I was throwing that Strike King baby Z2, and they were nipping at it, not biting it. I switched over to this little Damiki 2 3/4 bait and reloaded the boat within 30 minutes. I only had 1 keeper this morning on that Z2. I should have been throwing this at my first 2 spots because they was all over it. They just wouldn't eat it.
So I'm saucing up my minnow, got my limit, getting ready to take off here. I think I spent a little more time on this spot. I actually went up shallow, threw a jerk bait on this rocky bank that looked really good. Thought I seen some fish busting up there on some minnows, but finished up my cast there with the football jig. I'm gonna take off here, head to my second best spot, which I thought was my second best spot. Actually ended up being my first best spot day one and day two, but it was kind of like a little point. Um, it was a big 30-foot flat, I guess you could say, and then it was deep water on both sides. It dropped off super deep, and then in the deep water, it was 50 foot, 40, 50 plus foot, and there was some standing timber, stuff like that. And it was just a ditch going back to spawning pocket. But I wasn't using my forward facing sonar. I was just kind of blind casting my football jig here, 3/4 ounce untamed tackle juggernaut jig, and I use various different trailers on that. I was putting grubs on it. I was using a 5-inch Cinco, but this was my big fish of day one. This was a 512. This really helped me on day one. I wasn't sure of the hook set because I kind of was half paying attention there, just kind of casting around. I hadn't got bit in a little while, but we ended up getting this one in the boat, and as you can see here coming up, it was a major call. This called me up like 4.5 pounds because I had a couple 1-pounders in there, but that's a good fish. I was all jacked up. I was ready to go after that fish. That fish had me all jacked up. Plus, it's that feeling when you're onto something. You got the confidence now. Hey, hadn't got any bites in a while, but unfortunately, here's the big mistake of the day. This cost me probably a top 40. I'm sure of it. This cost me a top 40 because you could see me letting out line here. I seen a fish. I was reeling in. I've seen a fish chase my jig up, so I dropped it right down in his face. Well, I didn't realize when I did that, I was watching my forward facing sonar and I seen the fish shoot down to it. I didn't realize my line wrapped around my reel, and I ended up setting the hook. And that one hurt. I mean, I seen that fish on the forward facing sonar. I know it was a 4 or 5 pounder at least, and he was super aggressive. He chased it to the boat, and I dropped it down on him. Just happens. I mean, stuff like this happens. You're gonna lose fish. This was kind of a mental mistake. This was definitely avoidable. I should have looked down, seen, hey, my line's wrapped, take this off, then set the hook. But heat of the moment is what it is, and that was it.